I'm Zachariah Bogart, and welcome to Let's Talk Sedalia, a 1-hour program dedicated to bringing you news about Smith Cotton and key issues shaping Sedalia, Missouri. Each week, we welcome new guests to discuss topics that matter to our community. Let's Talk Sedalia is hosted by Ron Tollner, John Meehan, and myself. Now, let's turn it over to Ron Tollner and John Meehan as I bring you this week's guest program.
Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Sedalia. I'm Ron Tollner, one of your co-hosts. Also here today behind the magic curtain that's taking care of the engineering is Zach, one of our CAPS program participants here at Smith Cotton. Frankly, this would not happen without that man, so we thank him and we appreciate him very much. John Meehan is off today, so we'll give him a little bit of a break. We've got today, I think, just a tremendous program. I would say it's a human interest story, but it's a lot more than that. It's a story of an individual picking himself up, making a tremendous thing out of his life, and helping others. And you just can't ask any more than that. Today in the studio with me is Mr. Martin White, who actually, I think, was the first principal of the new Smith Cotton. Is that right, Martin?
Correct.
And, of course, he's been involved with the Sedalia School District for a long time. And our main guest today is Mr. Kardell Sims, who was also but he was a student with Smith Cotton back in the old days at the old school before we moved out here. And we are prepared to have a dialogue, I think, that you're going to really find interesting and uplifting, as a matter of fact. As we get started here, Kardell, why don't you take a few minutes, introduce yourself, talk about growing up in Sedalia, talk about Smith Cotton, and beyond.
I'm Kardell Sims. I'm the owner of Kardell Sims Enterprises and the Northside Organization, Reinventing the Honor. Within that, we have a program called On the Inside ReEntry Academy, where I go inside of prisons. We run personal development programs, entrepreneurship programs, Tyro leadership programs. We run a multitude of programs inside of correctional institutions, preparing guys for their release and their reentry back into society. I grew up here in Sedalia on the north side. Grade school, all schools. I went here from grade school to high school to even community college to State Fair. Attended Smith Cotton. When I was in the 4th grade, I was very acrobatic, and I used to be able to do these kick-ups off the ground. Yeah. And I met this coach who used to have me go to every gym session and do those kick-ups for every gym. But little did I know that this person and this coach would become valuable in my teenage years in my life. And that's y'all call him Martin White. That's Coach White to me. Coach White. I met Coach White when I was in the 4th grade, and he took me in like a son. Always got me into sports. Him and another guy who's real close to me as well by the name of Joe Gay. And them guys kept me in sports from the summertime through high school. So it was kind of a tag team duo. Joe would make sure I was in sports in the summer to be prepared for the school sports for Coach White. When I was a teenager, my mom became addicted to drugs. And from that point on, at 15 years old, I called a attempted murder case, first-degree assault case, and went to juvenile detention center. And while I was in the midst of doing that same coach, Coach White, he seen something in me a long time ago before I could see it in myself. So up to this point, he had me in basketball camps. He taught me the work ethic. I remember he had us out there baling hay, but that's how we had to pay for our basketball camps. And so when this incident happened, he came in, him and Coach Meyer and a few other coaches and people came and spoke to the judges on my behalf, and they gave me the opportunity to go into a foster home. And when I went to the first foster home I went to, it just didn't work. It was my auntie. It was a few houses down. Coach White used to come pick me up at 5 o'clock every morning. We go do workouts in the gym. And then we talked about it, and I was just telling him it wasn't the right place for me. And so he got with Joe Gay, and they talked. And Joe ended up taking me in this home my junior and senior year. My junior year, we had a great basketball season. Made it to the state. We were state ranked. Made it to the districts. We were supposed to win the districts, but somebody missed the dunk. Somebody missed the dunk that I never hear the end of it about. But it was just great. And then my senior year was the same thing. First team all conference. I was a good basketball player. And after that, I ended up going to State Fair Community College, and I played up under Coach Barton, who was another fabulous coach. Coach White and Coach Barton. It seemed like everywhere I went, Coach White was there. I was a good kid, but I was somewhat hard headed. And so after I got through State Fair, I went down to West Georgia, and I kind of, in a sense, was on my own. I didn't have Coach White, Coach Barton to stay on me. I was kind of on my own, and I just got into a lot of trouble. I came back to Sedalia and ended up in the street selling drugs and caught my first drug case. I sat in the Pettis County Jail for 6 months. I got out. I got probation, but within 4 months, I had violated every term of probation. I was sent to prison to do a 120-day shock. After the 120-day shock, I got back.
Where was that at, Kardell?
That was here in the shock was in Farmington Treatment Center in Fulton, Missouri. So it's right outside the diagnosis center in Fulton. So I went there, did 120 days. It was a drug treatment program. I got released, got out, went right back to the same neighborhood. Really didn't have no thoughts of changing my life around or nothing like that. Within probably 3 months of that, I caught another drug and gun case. I ended up going to trial on that case, and I lost in trial, and I got sentenced to a 7-year and a 12-year sentence running consecutively, totaling 19 years in the Missouri Department of Corrections. They sent me to the Missouri Department of Corrections. I go to the Missouri State Penitentiary, known as the Walls. It's closed down now, but it's a museum. But I went there for about a year. When you walk in there, there's a sign on the wall. It says, "Leave all your hopes and dreams behind." So that's kind of what I did. I was 24 years old with a 19-year sentence. And I just did that. So my whole prison time that year I was there, I didn't do nothing to better myself. They sent me down to Licking, Missouri, South Central Correctional Center. Just kept doing the same thing. After about my 4th year there, a Senate bill passed, and it cut my mandatory minimum in half. So I was up for immediate parole. But because I wasn't doing nothing with my time, I was fighting, gambling, playing basketball. Made a name in prison as probably the best basketball player to walk through Missouri Department of Corrections. But when I came home, when I went up to parole board, because I wasn't doing nothing with my time, I wasn't trying to better myself, they told me I had a few more years with them. It was the quickest parole hearing in history. I always say the guard walked me into the parole hearing. He went to the restroom. They told me I was part of the problem. I had some more years with them. And they asked me what did I think about institutional behavior and drug treatment. I told them I'd take the treatment because I knew it would get me out of prison early. And that was my whole parole hearing. So they gave me a 3-year out date. I ended up going to treatment early, getting out early, but I went back to the same neighborhood, same block, same gang. Within a year and a half of that, I caught another drug case. My mama's brother's son, he set me up. And I ended up getting my parole violated, going back to prison while fighting that case. Still wasn't doing nothing with my time, still the same old Kardell. One thing about changing or nothing, that had the aspirations to be a rapper, making videos and all these things. And I get out, go right back to the same neighborhood, same block, same gang. At this time, it was middle of a gang war. Some people got shot. Some people got killed. One of the guys I used to play basketball with in high school in the AAU, he was one of the guys that got killed. And so I'll get violated and go back to prison for associating with other convicted felons. And do another year. I get out. Because of the shooting, the federal government, ATF, was in town investigating our gang and our block. As soon as I got out of prison, I was under federal investigation. And probably within a year and a half of that, they picked up me and 37 other people.
So let me stop you there just a second. A couple things. You mentioned, I think, when you were just going into the Missouri Pen, as I call it, for the first time, what again was the message that was on the wall?
When you go in receiving, there's a sign written in red letters on the wall. So in receiving is kind of where you're getting your everything that you need. They processing you in and everything. So as you're coming in, there's a red sign on the wall that says, "Leave all your hopes and dreams behind."
That's not very positive, is it?
But that's not the only sign. They had another sign that you could see that said, "Abandon all hope, ye who walks beyond this point."
Tremendous.
Yeah.
Tremendous. And I realize we're not quite through with the incarceration part of this session, but when you take the first time, let's say, I guess what first jail facility you probably were in was Sedalia.
Yeah, the old Pettis County Jail.
Right. So if you start at that date and you go to the end of when you got out for good, what period of time was that?
You talking about from the age of 24 to 40?
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Wow, man.
Yeah, I ran in and out of my whole adulthood, from age of 22 up to 40, I was running in and out of county jail and prisons.
Yeah. I don't know. You remember where I cut you off at? Because I'd just say pick it up there.
Oh, yeah. And there, the federal government picked us up. Me and 37 other people from Sedalia, Warrensburg, Kansas City, in the drug conspiracy indictment back in 2013, real big in Sedalia. And they took us all to the federal courthouse in the Western District of Missouri in Kansas City, the Charles Whitaker Courthouse. And I was standing there and I'm looking around the courtroom. They handed us indictment papers. On the indictment papers, it has our charges, our nicknames, conspiracy charges to distribute 5 kilograms of cocaine base, gang activity, aiding and abetting. Then it had the time, 0 to 20, 5 to 40 years, 10 to life. I really wasn't focused on none of that. I was focused on the indictment paper at the head of the paper. At the top, it said the United States of America versus Kardell Sims. Now, I've been against Coach White and Coach Barton and a few of these, but this probably was my toughest competition, the United States of America. But now, on the for real side, seeing that made me ask myself, why do I keep finding myself in these situations? And it's kind of like I had a flashback on my life, because now I don't know if I'm going to get out of prison ever again or not. And I just told myself, man, whenever I get released, I'm going to be better than I was standing there that day.
So it's not like there was all of a sudden a come to Jesus moment.
No.
You just went on and on and on, and you finally said, I got to do something different.
The United States of America versus Kardell Sims. Like, that was and plus I wasn't 24 or 22 at the time. I was 34. So now I'm starting to think, I know I got to do at least 10 years. That means I'm going to get out when I'm 44. And I started thinking like I didn't want to grow old. I didn't want to grow old in prison, or get old and die in prison, or get sick in prison, or be in prison and a natural disaster happen, or a pandemic like COVID. So, yeah, that was my thing. That was the only fear I ever had about prison, is that I didn't want to get old and die in prison, because I've seen people do that. And so it was like, if I didn't get myself together, if I had the opportunity to get released on this federal case, I knew if I went back to prison again, I would never get out again.
Uh-huh.
And so I just started preparing for myself. I made a silent oath to myself that I'm going to be better when I walked out of prison if I get that opportunity, or whenever. And so from that point on, they sent me down to Bates County, Butler, Missouri. I sat in that county jail for 32 months. And during that whole 32 months, all I did was read books, knowledge yourself, science yourself, how to start business, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Contagious, The Richest Man in Babylon, Alchemy, Conscious, Subconscious, Superconscious, How to Set Smart Goals by Brian Tracy. Like, I just reading books over and over and over, but I was taking notes. And so once I went and got sentenced after 32 months sitting in Bates County, I got sentenced to 57 months in federal prison. So I just took that same regimen when I got to Leavenworth United States Penitentiary, which was another whole different experience, the federal system. Even though I had been doing prison time in the state, there was a lot of big differences between state and federal. The county time fighting the case was longer. Usually in the state, 4 to 6 months you'd be in prison. Well, in the feds, I was fighting for 32 months. When they sent me to Leavenworth, when I got to Leavenworth, it was just kind of like Missouri State Penitentiary. It was kind of like the Walls, old school model prison, tiered up. And when I walked in there, they got a spokesman. So in the federal prison, everybody has a number, but they last 3 digit, it represents the area where they're from. So if you see 045 is the Western District of Missouri. So everybody had a 045 on their shirt. They came out of Kansas City, the area. And so when you get there, they got a spokesperson that's waiting for everybody to come in. And when you walk in there, he's standing there and he's like, "You 045?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so what he does, he walks you around the prison, explains all the rules. Prison's very segregated. Blacks hang with blacks, whites hang with whites, Mexicans hang with Mexicans, Native hang with natives. So as he's walking me around the unit in Leavenworth, he's explaining everything. This is the Mexican area, don't step on it. Don't do nothing. Don't even talk. This is the white area. Don't go in there. You can't use nothing over here. And then he says, you know, you got 30 days to get your paperwork in. And so what he meant was I had 30 days to get all my court transcripts, all my pre-sentence investigation reports to show that I didn't tell on nobody, that I didn't do nothing to no women and children. So I ended up having my family send that paperwork in, but I also had them send all of them notes that I was taking in Bates County. I had them send all that in. And luckily in Leavenworth, they had programs. So now I kept the same regimen with the reading and taking notes and studying, but I started taking programs.
Because that was what I was going to ask you next. I mean, obviously you started this process out yourself by reading book after book after book, making your notes and so on and so forth. But there was an actual program at Leavenworth that kind of gave you a jump start?
Yeah, it was several programs. The first program I took, I started taking these programs based on what I felt like I wouldn't have no problem coming out of prison doing. And so the first program I took was janitorial. I took that for 6 months, graduated that. Then I took hotel hospitality and lodging for a year, ended up graduating that and with a certified concierge pen. Then after that, I took ServSafe, food preparation and handling, graduated that, became certified in that. Then I took this class called Consciousness and Success. I actually thought the class was going to teach me how to make a lot of money and be successful, right? But the class taught me about affirmations and vision boards. And so what I did during that class was I took all my pictures off the wall, the family and all the stuff I was doing, and I started building a vision of what I wanted my life to look like once I got released. And I started applying the affirmations. I said this one affirmation for about 6 months. And
so did you have folks that were at Leavenworth, employed, whatever, that were kind of helping you in this process, or was this just yours?
No, this was just me. Once staff seen that I was one of those guys that wasn't in prison to cause disruption or something like that, and they seen that I was trying to better myself, they started letting me get into classes before everybody else. Then I ended up getting a job as a tutor, so they kind of put me, you know, I knew when all the classes was coming, so I can be the first one to sign up and stuff like that. So staff started helping me once they seen that I was serious about, you know, making my change and not coming back to prison again. And that was just the educational staff from Miss Jackson, Lieutenant Luke, all these two people in Leavenworth. They was the one that was kind of pushing me to make sure I get all the programs that I need.
Did you have a question, Martin?
I'm just sitting here getting educated.
No kidding.
It's amazing. That's I'm just thinking as he's talking, and
well, and you've got an interesting perspective on this. Obviously, knowing him as well, I don't know if you were ever a little squirt, but at least a young squirt, and through his early years.
Well, I think eventually what kicked in Kardell was, as he said, from 22, 24 to 40. I think self-discipline finally kicked in on him. And like I said, I'm just sitting here getting educated in all this, you know, and learning the system, but he has succeeded the system.
Oh, yeah.
Basically.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so proud of him.
So a very key word. Very, very proud of this man.
I think this might have been the first time you really heard this journey.
It is, the whole journey. Yeah, I do little bits and pieces, but not this thorough.
So, again, reading on your own, and you had some people step in that were assisting on their side. Where in this process did you start concluding what direction you wanted to go in?
When I was building the vision board, I knew I wanted to be a speaker. I knew I was going to write books. I knew I was going to share my story. I knew I wanted to help people because while I was locked up, I was already helping a lot of people. A lot of guys coming to me. I was helping them set goals. I was helping them. Some people couldn't read, helping them read their mail, helping them write, teaching them literacy and things like that. That's one of the reasons why I worked in the as a tutor. And so I knew that I knew one or two things, that I was going to be a speaker and I was going to be some type of coach, a life coach. And I felt like I was going to be somewhere involved with children and coaching them, most likely in the basketball. But I was looking at, like, when I get out, what was it that I really wanted to do? And I knew that life coaching and writing books and speaking, I had that on my vision board. So every morning I woke up, even though I didn't know nothing about these things, I would go to the library. They had DVDs. I would get the magazines they had, entrepreneurship magazines, and I would start studying all these things, and start writing them down. And start putting together steps of how I was going to make it happen. And then once I was released, the only thing I had, no money, no nothing. All I had was 4 brown legal folders that had all these goals, these plans, these step by step. I call it my blueprint. And then I had that vision board.
Before we continue on with after you're out, would you say while you were in and trying to accomplish all of that, were there some people that just wanted to get in your way?
Oh yeah, do talk. That's prison. You got people that don't want to see you. You got people that's going to challenging your thinking, challenging what you stand on, because that's just them. But in Leavenworth, even though you might be there just to do your time and get better, you got to be a part of a car, what they call a car. You can't go in this prison, especially in federal prison. You can't go into prison and be a standalone person. If you is, you kind of like. You food for the wolves. So everything is separated amongst races, and even in the races, everything is separated. So amongst the black people, you have different cars: Kansas City car, Muslim car. You got the gang car, which is Bloods, Crips, GDs, Vice Lords. So everybody is in their own little clique, but you got to be in a clique, because you can't be by yourself. And it's like that for every race. And so you have meetings, you got fights. You got all these things that you got to try to duck and avoid, so you don't lose your out date.
Sure.
So my way of ducking and avoiding all that was in the library, right? Because everybody working on their cases, or those people in the library, they bettering themselves. So to get away from all the nonsense that might be happening in the rec room, might be happening on the yard, or might be happening in the gym, I strayed away from it. I still play basketball. I was 40 years old, led my team to the championships. Didn't quite get over the hump, a couple of young guys, they was dead. I couldn't keep up no more. I was a step, right? I couldn't jump the way I used to and things like that. But outside of that, I steered away from the people that was, those guys that were negative. Oh man, you programming? Oh yeah, you doing this? You better yourself. I just stayed away from them and surrounded myself in a library where I knew that's where the people was that was trying to grow, focused on not coming back. That's why I kind of hung out at my last prison beat.
All right. I'm not asking a lot of questions because, frankly, I don't need to. I mean, your story your story is tremendous. So pick up where you left off.
Yeah, I left Leavenworth and went to they sent me down to Springfield for the halfway house. I had a lot of things that I said I wasn't going to do. I wasn't going to come back home because every time I got out of prison and came back home, I ended up catching another case. So, but I also told myself I wasn't working the factory jobs. A lot of times guys get out of prison, we are expected and told to kind of take the last and the lowest paying jobs. What happened and what I understood was me taking them low paying jobs wasn't good for me. It just put me in environments that I didn't like, I didn't feel comfortable doing, and I would quit within a week or two. Once I quit a job, that was just kind of like my excuse to jump back in the streets. And so I already had it planned out of what jobs I wasn't going to take and things like that. So once I got to the halfway house, they handed me a list of jobs and a bus pass and told me to go find a job. On them jobs, it was all factory jobs, $19, $20 an hour. There was only one job that wasn't a factory job. It was telemarketing, and that was $11 an hour. That's the only job I went to, the only place I went to, because I was standing on what I said. I wasn't taking no factory job. I wasn't going to be the person this time to come out and was just trying to get any jobs to make the PO happy. I needed to really put myself in a position for me to win. So I took the telemarketer job. I rode the bus over there. It was a young guy. He probably was about 30. He came in. He had a lot of energy. He's like, "They sent you from the halfway house?" I was like, "Yeah." He started shaking his head a little bit, like, "Yeah, they send a lot of people over here. A lot of guys don't make it." And I was like, "Yeah, that's them, but I plan on making it." So he had me read the script. I read the script. He hired me on the spot, told me to come out the next morning. So for the next 4 to 5 months in the halfway house, my regimen looked like this. It's 5 a.m. I got up to catch the bus, got to the halfway house. Got to the work about 6:30. We had a meeting before work where we did affirmations and set goals as a telemarketer, how many sales or how many closers we was going to get that day. I worked from 7 to 3, got off of work, rode the bus back to the halfway house, got there about 4:35. I had wrote some books when I was in prison. Some guy had told me about Amazon, how Amazon worked. One of my main things for going to prison was money. And so I started studying Amazon, how it worked, and I wrote some books and I passed them around the jail and people loved them. So I just put them up and never opened them up again until I got to the halfway house, and I had to take them from take them from paper to PDF. So I had to type them all the way back up and turn them to a PDF file and upload them to Amazon. So I did that for 2 hours, and that was from 5 to 7. From 7 to 9, I got online from the paperwork that I had when I was in prison. One of the magazines had websites where you can take life coaching courses. So I got on the websites. I paid for a monthly to pay for the life coaching courses. And when I walked up the halfway house, I had a vehicle. I had 1 life coaching diploma, and then I also had 3 books typed up in physical form. I came back to Sedalia, and as soon as I came to Sedalia, I got me a business license. And so I started working at Dollar Tree at 5 in the morning to 10, stocking. Then I worked at Hibbett Sports right next door from 11 to 7. And on the weekend, I would host free speaking engagements, and I would sell my books and sell my T-shirts there. And that's how I would make extra money. Then I had like 4 or 5 people here in Sedalia's yard I would cut as well. So I would put my lawnmower in the back of my Suburban, and I would go cut the grass, and that's how I would make extra money. And then I saved up enough money to move to St. Joseph. Knew I was going to move. That was always in the plan because, like I said earlier, every time I got out of prison, came back to Sedalia, I went back to this old neighborhood, and I went right back to prison. So I moved to St. Joseph. I still had my business. And by the time I moved to St. Joseph, I had got another diploma in life coaching, became a master certified empowerment life coach. So I started life coaching on my business on the side. And when I got to St. Joseph, I also got into marketing and promoting. I worked for this company called Alinco out of Olathe, Kansas. So what I was the lead generator. So I would go to all the home and garden shows they would have in Kansas City, car shows, Sam's Club, Home Depots, Price Shoppers, hen houses. And I would stand there and ask about 1,000 people every day, do they need any home improvement products, right? As they were leaving. And I probably heard like 990 no's, which was good. At the time, I didn't realize this, but it was teaching me how to accept no, right? And not only how to accept no, but how to move past the no.
Well, and it obviously, I mean, it's probably fair to say you were never very shy, but it just the different matters every day, day after day, your interaction with the public, your in some ways public speaking and so forth. I mean, you were building an internal resume, you might say.
Yeah, most definitely was. And I did that job for a few years, and COVID hit. And COVID took that type of work out. But because when I first got out of prison, I knew I wanted to learn business. I had joined this business group, a group full of entrepreneurs from all over. I paid $79 a month, even when I didn't have it. I used to have to change debit cards and everything else, but it was important for me to be in this group and learn business. Still in this group to today. We met Monday through Friday every morning. We still do from 7 in the morning to 8 in the morning. And you have all these top business people come on this podcast and share their secrets into their business, from some of the top people in the speaking world, some of the top people in the coaching world, some of the top authors, some of the people that I used to watch their videos for motivation was part of this group. And then from that group, I met some mentors. So when COVID hit, one of my mentors challenged me. He said, man, you writing all these books, write a book about your life. And so when I wrote the book about my life, it was called Innate the Inspiration, just highlighting my journey. And I was still on federal probation, the federal paper when this happened. And so I wrote the book, and I ended up having 400 pre-orders. And so I was, that kind of put me in a good position, especially with COVID going down. And so while I was released that book, I got a job at FedEx. And FedEx, remember how we was talking about how that public speaking came in handy? This job would come in handy, even though I didn't think it would, but this would come in handy in my future things. But I got a job at FedEx, and I was still on federal probation. And then I had another one of my mentors told me to start a podcast. He's like, man, you need to start a podcast. I remember when I was locked up in Leavenworth reading about podcasts. So I actually remember tearing the page out of the magazine and keeping it, because this is probably like 2013, 14, like 14 to 15, where you was here before podcasting became big, but they were saying it was the future of business.
Right.
So when he told me to do that, I went to my folders and found that paperwork, And I followed the steps, step by step. And I started the podcast called The ReEntry Journey. I want to highlight those journeys of people who's coming out of prison being successful. And success wasn't about a lot of money. It was about them putting themselves in a position that they wasn't never returning to prison again, whether it was found in reunification, they just got them a job and got great job, great benefits, 401k, was able to take their money and put a down payment on a house. Or it could have been you got out of prison and you became a number one. Like I got a guy like Waldo who came out of prison and now they podcast is one of the top podcasters around the United States. But it was just to highlight and show those who was getting out of prison that was doing great things. And so from that, I built the networking. And I'm still on federal probation. And then I had got off federal probation. And somebody who read my book had a company who the federal government gave them a grant for the first time ever forming incarcerated speakers to go back inside the federal prisons and speak.
Obviously, that worked right into what you wanted to do.
And they chose me. She asked me that. She read my book. She said, I want you to be one of the speakers. And they paid me $1,200 a prison. They paid for all my travel, eating, lodging. I had to pay for nothing. I ended up doing 10 prisons. And so what happened was during that time in the prison, I was taking surveys with the guys. I already knew what was lacking in prison. But at the end of the day, it came out that most of the institutions wanted programs ran by people like me who've been through it. And so I started designing on the inside ReEntry Academy. Once I put that together, I went to the Missouri Department of Corrections website, searched for their bids, and they didn't have no open reentry bids, but they had an email address. I'm already used to being told no, so you ain't gonna tell me yes, you're gonna tell me no, right? And so I sent them an email with my bio, with my program outline of what my program was about, and they said, man, we would like for you to have that program in St. Joseph Prison. And so that's when I started running my first programs in St. Joseph Prison. I ran it there for the first year that I did a pilot run. Once that was over with, I had enough signups for the next 3 years. Guys really wanted to be in my class. And so I continued running that. But I had created a virtual side because I was meeting with all these wardens, reentry programs via Teams, Zooms, and stuff like that. So I said, if we can meet like this, then we can set a TV up inside of a classroom where we can run class like that. And so Arizona, like what I was doing in Missouri, and I ended up getting a contract with Arizona on the virtual side. And so one thing that was different about my classes was I was bringing 2 successful formerly incarcerated people in my class every month, whether it was physical or whether it was virtual, to share their stories and their tips. Reason why I did that because on the inside of prison, you don't see the success. You see the failures, but you don't see the success. So outside of me, I wanted all my class to know that it was a lot of us out here that was doing it, and it helped reprogram the reticular activating system. For those that don't know what that is, your brain takes in about 4 billion bits of information. As soon as we walked in this building, we walked in here through our senses, we just started collecting information and data. But you have a filtering system that filters the information down to about 20,000 bits. But what does it know to keep? It keeps what's relevant to you and what's a potential threat. It happens to us all the time. Like if your wife or somebody that's relevant to you get a new car, everywhere you go, you see that type of make and model with that car. That's your reticular activating system, because the reason why you see that is because the person who owns the car has become relevant to you. So you see it everywhere. So that's kind of the model I want to take with the guys in my class. They continue to see this. Now successful reentry becomes relevant to them. And so once I did that, I said, well, I'm going to take this same model and I'm going to go around the country. Didn't have no idea how I was going to do it. Didn't really have the funding. Kind of just put it in God's hand. So I was going to go around the country and take the same feeling. And we end up going to, I took 6 formerly incarcerated educators and correction educators who lost their job during COVID. We went to 8 different states. We hosted 27 prisons and 34 reentry workshops. And it became a success. And that's where the FedEx kicked in, because I drove to all these places. And people was like, how you driving to, I think probably the farthest place I drove out was to Maryland. It's like, how you driving out to Maryland? I'm like, man, I used to work from FedEx from 4:30 in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. So driving ain't no thing. But it came in handy for that. And then from hosting that tour, we did a documentary about the tour we about to release. And it put me as a leader, an emerging leader in the reentry space. So over the last 20 months, I've been to over 50 prisons, institutions, either speaking, running programs, running workshops.
So is it fair to say, Kardell, that at this stage of the game, I mean, I can tell just visiting with you and listening to you that you're not done. There's a lot of things you want to do yet. But as far as what you're doing at this point, is it fair to say you've made a name for yourself within the incarceration system and preparation to get out?
Yeah, you can say that. A few people call me the ReEntry King. Kind of crazy, but in the ReEntry space, I became one of the leaders in the nationally. Over the last few months, I've been training staff and correctional people out in Zambia, Africa, via Zoom. We're looking to open up our on the Inside ReEntry Academy in Zambia, Africa. Their main thing over there is for funding is farming, right? And so I don't really know too much about farming, but I know someone who has a Farm in the Freedom program for those incarcerated. So we're working on partnership and being able to get tablets out there to the class in Zambia, Africa, but also get them a farming program started.
Tremendous. Just tremendous.
Very proud of him. There's an old saying I taught a lot of them ball players back in that time. Not how you start, it's how you finish.
How you finish.
And that was what I was thinking all the way.
So, you've got a website out there. I've been out there. It's a nice summary that of what you have gone through and what your aspirations are. What is that address for that website?
Oh, it's KardellSims.com. My name is my brand. My story, everything about me is my brand. And so that's something that I learned in business. The name of our company originally was Visionary Hustler. I was goal setting company, teaching people how to manifest their vision to be the boss of their mission. But as more and more of my story became my brand, I rebranded and I became my brand because people was looking for Kardell Sims, right? They weren't looking for Visionary Hustler. They wanted to hear Kardell Sims tell his story and how he did it. And so, KardellSims.com.
And if you go out to KardellSims.com, there is a section on, I'll call it products, books, whatever. But there are items for sale out there, and I'm guessing that these are all items that you authored or set up.
Yeah, I wrote all my books, create all my workbooks. I'm a 13-time author. You can get my book. I got Inmate the Inspiration. The newest book I just released a couple months ago was On the Inside. It's just a blueprint of, like you was talking about my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal was to take this ReEntry Academy and just what I built in here and take that into corporate and get into corporate leadership training, corporate speaking. They got the big dollars there. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so $5,000 for speaking engagements is great, but I like to get up in the $25,000, $50,000 for so that's the ultimate goal, is to build this ReEntry empire, then take them skills and everything that I learned and took in that leadership and go start doing leadership development inside of corporate. I'm a part of a lot of companies that I consult. Also, as part of my business, ReEntry consultation, so I consult a lot of tech companies, a lot of people who's formerly incarcerated, who's trying to get their programs or build programs inside of institutions, from Caterpillar to Sobran 40 to Cora to Career Team. Like my main focus is to bring impactful programs inside of correctional institutions. What we're seeing now is a lot of the VR. So like I said, Caterpillar, they have a lot of simulation programs that are good for guys on the inside to get the skills and get the feel of what it's like to work in that field. And so, like I said, my goal is to take that there and move up to the corporate world and then grow my organization. I don't want to talk about the North Organization, because even though I moved away, I always want to make an impact at home still. And that's why I create the North Organization. That's my other business, my nonprofit.
And what is it called again?
North Organization. North is an acronym for the Northside Organization, Reinventing the Honor. Because I was part of the gangs and the drug problems on the north side of the community to help destroy their neighborhood, I made it my purpose to create an organization to help rebuild and bring value back to our community. Coach White can tell you, you've seen this devalue of the community over the last, when I'm 40 years old, so over the last 30 years, I watched a lot of houses get torn down, businesses get taken out of there, and nothing has been replaced. So with the North Organization, we started with most of the community events, like our annual Easter egg hunt, our day in the parks. We got to spark the hearts for the arts program for the youth, that we put them to get them involved in the arts. So, but our ultimate goal is we want to build bring real estate, property, businesses over on the north side. We want a North Organization community center over there as well. So that's where I focused in on rebuilding in the area that I helped destroy and give it back to my community.
So, with all of the places, and I know you've just fairly touched on it, but you've been to a lot of places in this country, either physically or via Zoom or whatever. But when it comes to you picking up new clients, is most of that word of mouth? How do you get promoted?
Social media. I'm everything in my business, from the salesman to the marketer and everything like that. So I create a lot of marketing videos and things like that I just constantly post ads and stuff throughout social media. People run to me. My strongest point is my strongest house is LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is where, that's where all the business professional things like that. At first it was word of mouth, but now I built up, what I built has in a sense been solidified to where we need Kardell Sims to come to our institution, or we need Kardell Sims to speak at our conferences.
So I'm going to throw a question or two at you here that, well, they wouldn't be easy answers for me. Heck, with what I've heard you say, they may be very easy to you. But in this whole process, is there something or some things that have impressed you the most, that have helped you the most, that have made you successful, certain things that you would point at, and conversely, on the other side, the disappointments along the way?
As far as disappointments, I don't have no disappointments. Right? I realized that what I've been through, God was preparing me to do the mission that I'm doing now. Right? I couldn't go in and touch all these people in prison and help these prisoners build positive programs for the guys if I didn't spend all that time in and out of prison. I always make a joke, God had me running in and out of prison just to go back and be running in and out of prison. Right? But so disappointments I don't have one. And as far as like the most important thing that I learned through this whole thing is to trust the process, right? So and not to control the process. I was taught when you pray, you can't worry after you pray. You prayed on it, so you got to let God do His work.
Move on.
Yeah, and so that's when I say trust the process is, I know that the results I'm seeking, I'm going to get if I put the work in. Right, the work that it takes. A lot of people see me around at now, but they don't see the Dollar Trees. They don't see the telemarketing. They don't see me up 5 a.m, day in and day out. Ever since I walk out of prison, they don't see the sacrifices that comes with it. They just see the end result. But at the end of the day, I know when I wake up in the morning, I live off the motto of trust the process. If the work you're putting in, you're going to get the results you're seeking if you put the work in.
Tremendous. Just tremendous. Martin, any other thoughts or questions?
Like I said, I'm in a positive shock mood right now, or mode that all the processes he's had to go through and done it. He's got the Lord behind him. But like I've said, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And
right.
He's going to finish his legacy.
Well, I knew when I first heard you speak was, I don't know, a year, even a year and a half ago, when you spoke to Sedalia Rotary here. Mm-hmm. And, I think during that whole presentation, my jaw just dropped because I had no idea just
right.
where you had come from, what you had accomplished. Man, I don't even know you, and I'm proud as heck of you.
Oh, man, I appreciate it.
It's just tremendous. Anything that we haven't hit on that you'd like to throw out to the listeners?
No, not really. I do prison prevention as well. I got a program called No New Numbers. As you know, when you go into prison, the first thing you get is a number. You're known by that number. You're addressed by that number. So I got a program for the youth called No New Numbers, where we work on social and emotional learning to keep them out of position of getting in trouble and going into prison to get a number. Right? Yeah. Those young guys, we try to find a way to provide them with mentors, knowledge, let them understand that, in today's society, there's many different ways that we feel like that they can build a successful career. For example, podcasting. Like, you'd be surprised. I got a couple of guys that's in the reentry space that got huge, major podcasters, and they just off podcasts and passive income alone, they probably make $16,000 to $20,000, and that's just like a YouTube check, and that's from sitting down, spending time in creating the podcasts, cutting them up, and marketing them. So that program there, we focus on just providing the young people with the skills, and a lot of time it's the mentorship. They got somebody that they can talk to, someone that can guide them along the way. And I feel like that's the least I can do for them.
Sure. Well, I think we'll wrap this episode of Let's Talk. Just a truly tremendous opportunity for me to get to know you. Thank you for that. I also wanted to send a shout out to someone that Kardell mentioned at the first part of this program, and that was Joe Gay.
Yes.
Joe, buddy, you have been a warrior for this community for years, and the number of people, especially the number of kids that you've touched, just tremendous. And I've always been proud to know you as well, my friend.
Yeah, definitely got it, man. Yeah, definitely got to give a huge thanks to Joe. I think everyone that I know that Joe coached in AAU, that Coach White was a part of, I think all of us end up going to college, right?
Yeah.
And that speaks a lot.
Joe was very inspirational for all kids.
For all kids, yes. For all,
More than his own.
Yeah. I always say, when it's all said and done, Sedalia got to name a gym or a street or something after Joe. Yeah.
That's a good thought.
I just seen him a month ago at a convenience store, and he's already talking about coaching another third, fourth grade girls team.
Come on.
And the man doesn't change.
Oh, no.
It's just like you can walk into him and it's like you maybe haven't talked to him in 5 years, but you just
Yeah.
Tremendous.
Yeah, most
well,
definitely.
Kardell, people want to reach out to you again. KardellSims.com, correct?
Yeah, KardellSims.com. Yeah.
In addition to some narrative about Kardell and where he's been, what he's accomplished, you will also find his books out there, and I'm sure there's a way for you to acquire it from that site. But I have a feeling this is not the last that we have heard of Kardell, and I'm talking about good things to come. So again, thank you for being here today. Proud of you, man, and keep at it because you are helping a lot of folks.
Yep.
Oh, man, I appreciate you having me as a guest and giving me the opportunity. I mean, it feels good to be here.
Come back to your old alma
Smith
mater.
Cotton, yeah. It feels good.
All right, folks, that does it for this session. We will be back with another Let's Talk.